Your dependable forecast for today. We are under a winter storm warning until noon. 50% chance of snow until 7 or so this morning. Then things will clear out by noon. Blowing snow, a problem throughout the day. High today near 24. Wind chill values between 2 and 12. Winds sustained at 10 to 15 miles an hour with gusts as high as 26 miles an hour. So the roads will continue to be a problem throughout the day. We will have an update for you coming up in moments. Partly cloudy tonight, low around 7. Sunny Tuesday, high near 21. But the roads today, the conditions out there, the issue right now, we will keep you updated here on 92.7 WMAY. .20 degrees, 610, 92.7 WMAY. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Springfield's Morning News. I'm Patrick Fingston. I'm back for the first time in 3.5 weeks after we had a baby last month. Not a lot of time to talk about that this morning because we are in the middle of a winter storm warning. So I've got a wonderful welcome back gift, and we'll talk about all that stuff, diapers and bottles and stuff throughout the morning. But we're going to get you an update of what's going on in the area right away this morning on road conditions. We'll talk to Brian Davis, the county highway engineer, coming up in just a few minutes. We're going to start, though, in the city of Springfield with Dave Fuchs, the public works director. Dave, good morning. How are you?
I'm just fine, Patrick. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking a few minutes. I know you are slammed this morning. Let's start here. What are the conditions of roads in the city of Springfield right now?
Springfield is currently under a snow emergency, and that will be in effect until 11 o'clock this evening. That could be continued if the need be. We've received right at about 9-10 inches of snow since Saturday night. Currently, all streets in the city of Springfield are snow covered and hazardous. We were making some progress getting rid of the loose snow overnight, but unfortunately it started snowing again at 2 o'clock this morning. And so we're making some progress on some of the secondary streets. Those would be the streets that go into some of the neighborhoods. We've had to pull everybody out and put them back on the primary streets to keep them open for emergency response vehicles. So it's tough sledding, if you will. I don't recommend travel if you absolutely don't have to. Please give our plows and crews enough room and space to be able to clear the snow. But we're in tough shape this morning.
How frustrating is it when you're able to, because obviously people notice when their side streets aren't plowed, right? I couldn't get out, I couldn't get to work, even though I had to. It was a pain in the butt. But you guys have to keep the arteries open first, right? That's the priority.
Absolutely. The most well-traveled streets in the city are our top priority, again, for emergency response traffic. I appreciate the difficulty that people have in their neighborhoods, but our equipment is, we have 28 plows that are running right now. We have 8 smaller pieces, tractors with end loaders and telehandlers and whatnot. And everything's running full bore, but we have to focus our resources where they're going to do us the most effect, and we have to keep those main streets, the primaries as we call them, as open as we possibly can. So that's our focus right now.
I know we're down at 20 or under for temperature right now. What does that do to salt? What is that? Is it still impactful at this temperature?
It is. Unfortunately, when you have so much loose snow on top of the packed snow or ice that's on the pavement, the salt doesn't do that much good. When you start getting into the lower temperatures, let's say 12, 10 degrees, salt becomes certainly less effective. But when you have a lot of loose snow on top of the pavement, the salt isn't necessarily as effective. So we're trying to get rid of the loose stuff right now. As I said, it started snowing again at 2, and that should be over by the middle of the morning. I just caught the weather update. So
Dave Fuchs from the city of Springfield Public Works joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. Dave, just real quick, you got 28 trucks out there. I know that's kind of your overnight crew. What's the plan here throughout the day?
Well, it's the night crew will be going off the watch at 7 o'clock, and then our day crew will come on board. Barring any maintenance problems, we'll continue to have 28 trucks, snow plows working, and the additional equipment. We've also brought in some contractors that have started in some of the neighborhoods that are on the outskirts of the city. So it's all hands on deck. And everybody's moving forward. But I do caution people, please, if you have to drive, be very, very careful.
This is probably more of a county or state police issue, but the winds are up and going to go even higher through the day. What is the wind issue for you all as you're trying to clear streets?
Well, the winds, as the snow stops, the wind picks up out of the northwest. And I understand anywhere from 20 to 25 miles an hour. It's not such a big problem here in the city of Springfield, although we do have cornfields adjacent to some of our neighborhoods. After all, it is Springfield. So where you've got some open area, the blowing could be an issue, but it's not as big an issue for us as it is for IDOT or the county.
Dave Fuchs, from Public Works Director for the City of Springfield. Dave, thanks for the time. Thanks for your work overnight, and to you and all of your crew, we thank them. And keep us updated if there's anything we need to know.
Will do, Patrick. Thank you.
That's Dave Fuchs from the City of Springfield Public Works Department. We'll talk to Brian Davis, the county highway engineer, coming up here in just a few minutes. Let me give you kind of an update of what I was able to gather from different sources before we went on the air this morning, just to give you a sense of where we're at in this winter storm. I talked to the National Weather Service about an hour ago, not quite an hour ago. As of midnight, the city of Springfield had received 6.6 inches of snow. That's variable, though. They're generally saying 6 to 8 inches of snow in the area. We've seen some reports, even a little to the south, like Chatham had 9.5 inches of snow as of midnight. So we'll keep an eye on that as we'll see a new update from them, the National Weather Service, likely in the next 20 minutes or so. It's been snowing about an inch or two left. They're expecting about an inch or two, excuse me, I'm reading my notes here. We got an extra inch or two since midnight. So they're expecting that number to be kind of in that 6 to 8 to 10 inches, depending on where you are. Snow should be done by about 7 o'clock. Then the winds take over, and that's going to be the problem that we're going to face through much of the rest of the day. Winds will gust 20 to 25 miles an hour. It'll be over 30 miles an hour at times, and they'll be up all afternoon. They'll decrease later in the afternoon, but this was a very light, powdery snow, which is going to mean a lot of blowing and drifting, especially throughout the area. State police say a tow ban remains in place. So if you wreck on the interstate, they are not moving your car. No roads currently shut down. No interstates currently shut down, according to state police. There was a big accident around Lincoln last night that they did shut 55 down for a few hours, and state police are advising no travel unless absolutely necessary. They want you to stay off the interstate today if you possibly can. City, of course, we just heard from Dave Fuchs, fully deployed night crew, 28 plows, 8 end loaders through 7 o'clock. Then they'll switch to their day crew. They were making progress on main roads and even started to get into side streets overnight. And that sort of went backward as it started to snow again overnight around 2 a.m. or so. They've got to clear this loose snow so that the salt can start to penetrate. But if it's just on top of this loose blowing snow, it doesn't really do anything. And of course, the wind will be an issue out there through the morning. So that's the quick update. It's 619 92.7 WMAY. We'll talk to Brian Davis, the County Highway Commissioner, coming up next here on 92.7 WMAY. Twenty degrees, winter storm warning ongoing until noon today. About 7 inches of snow here in Springfield as of midnight. We expect another couple of inches, potentially more, when the National Weather Service puts out its latest report here in the next little bit. Let's get a check of the roads out in the county. We heard from Dave Fuchs from the city of Springfield just a little bit ago. We are pleased to welcome Brian Davis, the Sangamon County highway engineer. Brian, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Patrick. I'm just fine, and thanks for having me, and congratulations on the addition to the Finkston household.
Thank you very much. It's I've been arms deep in diapers, and I get to go arms deep in a blizzard on my first day back. So we're sleep deprived, but we're hanging in there. So Brian, what's the condition around the county right now?
What we're seeing, we do have several of the east and west roadways are seeing some drifting, especially on the north side of the roadway. So that would be, say, your westbound lanes. But the north-south roads are pretty well opened up right now, and everything is going well out in the county. We're fighting our biggest enemy right now is that wind. So I think we're starting to see some of the snow curtailing out here. Mm-hmm. In the rural areas. I'm not seeing a much snowfall right now, but I can tell you that there's still a lot of snow blowing around.
Yeah, where are you right now? Are you like in it? Are you in a plow just chilling out, or are you out knocking snow down? What are you doing right now?
I am not in a plow. I'm more in the supervisory capacity, so I am actually up in Williamsville right now. So I've made my way all the way. I've been down through and around Chatham, and then all the way up through Sherman and out toward Dawson and up to Williamsville so far this morning.
And you've seen the conditions around the area. Are they deteriorating with the wind, or is it pretty consistent?
I would say we're improving at this point. Our plows have been out for about 2 hours now again. So we did shut down overnight in the county just because of blowing and drifting and safety precautions and our manpower, but we've been back and at it for about 2 hours, and we're getting things opened back up again. And when I say open back up, it's not that things were closed necessarily, but just seeing some of those drifts that have extended out into some of those roadways.
A lot of the roads that you all have to manage, Brian, because of course, for city slickers may not know the difference between a county road and a township road. Those of us who grew up on a farm certainly know the difference. But you guys have to deal with a lot of main arteries. I think of that road that connects Riverton and Williamsville, right? That's a pretty big connector from 55. So you guys have a lot of these main arteries. So do you just have to keep pounding and pounding and pounding the same roads over and over again just to keep up?
Yeah, just to give you a little bit of background, Sangamon County has 250 centerline miles of roadway within the county. And as you mentioned, they are some of your major arterials connecting a lot of our rural villages into the city of Springfield. So some of the ones you mentioned, the one from Riverton up to Williamsville, Sherman out to Illiopolis is another route. We've got Woodside Road and Iron Bridge Road down in the Chatham area, and then Old Jacksonville Road going out the west side are some of our higher volume roadways. But those are the roads that we're responsible for the county highway department. And then, as you mentioned, there are township roadways that are, basically connector roadways to those main county roads that are responsibility of the township road commissioners.
Brian Davis, the Sangamon County Highway Commissioner, highway engineer, joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. Even with the blowing snow right now, Brian, that looks like it's going to be an issue into the late morning, even the afternoon. Are those county highways, are we at least passable in one lane? I mean, I know those drifts are going to be an issue moving forward.
Yes, we do have. I have not encountered any roadways. I was on the phone with Sheriff Crouch this morning as well. There's not any reports of closed roadways in the county. There's at least one lane that is passable, even on some of those east-west. And that second lane we're starting to see opened up here in the last hour or so. We are still under a level 2 for the county, but we're evaluating that on a constant basis, and we're hoping that we can do something with that, in the near future.
So obviously, that level 2 means folks can't be guaranteed if they were to go into a ditch or anything, the police can respond. So I know you're still telling people to stay off the roads, give your guys enough time to get out there and knock these drifts down, knock this blowing snow down, and get these roads passable as the day goes on, right?
Yeah, we're just to caution anybody, if you do need to be out, make sure you give yourself plenty of time. Please give our plows plenty of space and room to operate. They have some extra responsibilities at intersections. They're not just plowing straight through intersections, so make sure you give them plenty of room that they can operate to move back and forth when you do encounter a plow near an intersection per se. And we're doing certainly doing the best we can to battle the winds that are out there right now are probably our biggest enemy, as I said.
Brian Davis, the Sangamon County Highway Engineer. Busy morning for you, Brian. I appreciate you taking a few minutes. Thanks so much. Best of luck to you and your crews as they're out this morning, and we thank you all for your hard work.
All right, Patrick, thanks, and have a good day.
That's Brian Davis, the Sangamon County Highway Engineer, joining us here on 92.7 WMAY. So that's kind of a quick rundown of what we are seeing on the roadways. State police on the interstates are saying that you are advised not to travel on the interstates unless absolutely necessary. They want you essentially to stay off the interstates. If you look at the road condition map, the interstate condition map, it is still in bad shape all around Springfield. So they are saying, blowing, drifting, continued problems. If you look at the cameras, Dirksen at Stevenson still completely snow covered. MacArthur at 72 completely snow covered. Veterans Parkway at Monroe, couple of cars moving. You can see a little bit of pavement there as we look at some of these cameras. Veterans Parkway at Jacksonville Road, you can see a little bit of pavement there, but still pretty slow going. And then, of course, on 55 at Sangamon Avenue, still mostly snow covered. It looks like you've got a little peek through of one lane as of 5 minutes ago or so. And Dirksen at Clear Lake, mostly snow covered, as well as 55 as around Dirksen, still barely a little pavement showing. So it's rough out there, guys. This is what we see in the winter here in the Midwest. It is not safe. It is not fun, but that's what we have to deal with. So we will keep you updated throughout the morning. That's our job. That's what we're here to do, and we will keep you in the loop on road conditions, on weather, et cetera, et cetera. It is 6:30. Time for the news here on 92.7 WMAY. Your dependable forecast. We are under a winter storm warning until noon today. Snow will taper off sometime in the next 30 minutes or so, depending on where you are in our listening area. National Weather Service saying 8.2 inches of snow in Springfield as of 6 a.m. Areas of blowing snow will persist throughout the morning, then into the afternoon. High today, 24. Wind chill values between 2 and 12 miles an hour. Wind gusts will push between 25 and 30 miles an hour throughout the day, leading to blowing snow problems. Partly cloudy tonight, low around 7 above. Wind gusts will bring that wind chill well below zero. Mostly sunny Tuesday, high 21. Sunny on Wednesday with a high near 18. It is 20 right now. Wind chill is 6 at 6:35 on 92.7 WMAY. Twenty degrees feels like 6. 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Good morning. Patrick Fingston here. I'm back. Did you miss me? Thanks to Brett Gogol and all the folks for filling in for a couple of weeks while I was out tending to a new baby. It's been a little bit of a wild scene at our house with a 3-year-old on top of a month premature little girl born December 12th. She was 5 pounds, 8 ounces, little tiny thing. You feel like you're going to break her. But she's doing great. She's eating like a champ. She's growing. She's screaming. She's already got me wrapped around her tiny little finger, as you can imagine. So we're having, and Big Brother loves her, so we're having a great time. We're a little short on sleep around here. We're actually streaming this morning on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. So if you're watching there, you can see the bags under my eyes have grown even more in the last 3.5 weeks. But we're thrilled. Thanks for all of you that have reached out with notes or calls or texts over the last couple of weeks. And even thanks to some of those who said, I hope you never come back. So, yeah. Too bad. All right, so we are under a winter storm warning until noon, just to kind of reset our situation here. Winter storm warning until noon. The Weather Service updated its number as of 6 o'clock of snowfall for the city of Springfield at 8.2 inches. So they kind of hit where they were talking about 6 to 8, depending on where they were at midnight. So the snow's going to be done probably in the next half hour or so. At least that's the expectation from the Weather Service. Then the winds become the problem, especially out in the rural areas. Winds will gust 20 to 25 miles an hour, could be over 30 miles an hour in places at times. They'll decrease into the afternoons. That will help crews, especially on the interstates and like the county highway folks, be able to catch up as the afternoon goes on. But it's going to be a treacherous, tricky morning out there. When I talked to state police about an hour ago, their tow ban is still in effect. So if you were to skid off on the interstate, nobody's coming to get you. Or at least get your car at this point. Nothing is shut down. There was a shutdown overnight. There was a big accident around Lincoln, but that has not continued. They reopened that overnight. No other closures on 55 or 72 at this point, but state police are advising that no travel on the interstate unless absolutely necessary. They're saying stay off the interstates this morning. The city, Dave Fuchs, the public works director, they've got 28 plows, 8 end loaders out. They're going to switch out their crew at 7 o'clock. They were making progress overnight. They were actually starting to get into some of those side streets, which I know is frustrating for folks because you want your side street cleared so you can get to work, you can get to where you need to be. They were making progress, starting to hit some of those side streets overnight. You may have heard a truck in your neighborhood as the clock hit midnight overnight. But when the snow started up again around 2 o'clock, the city had to redirect their trucks back out to the main roads. They're trying to clear some of this loose powdery stuff off of those main streets so that they can get salt down, because if they're just putting salt on top of that powdery stuff that's blowing around everywhere, it's not going to make any sort of help for it's not going to do anything to help on those roads. County Highway Engineer Brian Davis says rural drifting in at least one lane in much of county roads. They are improving, he said, but they are fighting a battle with blowing snow. But they're open and passable in at least one lane. Steady winds will hinder those cleaning efforts. They've got 20 plows out on county roads as of this morning. Sheriff Paula Crouch told me this morning they haven't had a lot of accidents. She said people are being smart, staying off the roads. Several motorist assists, people in ditch, those sort of things, but nothing serious. She does say a lot of people appear to have been able to stay home. So here's kind of our plan for this morning. Excuse me. We do want to talk about a little news as the morning continues. We've obviously spent the first 45 minutes of this show strictly on the weather, and that's of course important as we're dealing with that in the area. And we'll continue to deal with that, though. Coming up in about 10 minutes, 5 minutes or so, we'll talk to our friend Tom LoBianco, who writes 24Sight, 24sight.news. We also host a podcast together called The Ground Game about national politics, Mike Johnson's speaker election last week, the preparations in D.C. for the new Trump administration, and what to expect on January 6th. A little bit different of a feeling in DC this morning. So we'll talk to Tom coming up at 6:49 or so. Coming up after the news at 7, we'll talk to John Bumgardner from the National Weather Service in Lincoln. give us an update as to what's going on out there, what he's expecting. 7:49, we're hoping to talk to Kevin Leidy, who's the chief meteorologist at Channel 3 WCIA. He pulled like a 20-hour day yesterday. So if he sleeps through us, he gets a pass. But we're hoping to talk to him a little before 8. And coming up at 8:19, we'll talk to Senator Doris Turner from Springfield. The legislature is in session today, unbelievably. They've got everybody in town, so let's roll, I guess. The Senate is in at 10 and the House in at 11, I think. So it's not fit for man nor beast out there, but it's fine for whatever the hell the General Assembly is. So Senator Turner will join us around 8:19. So we'll have that and more coming up throughout the morning here on 92.7 WMAY. District 186 was closed anyway today for a Teachers Institute. So those schools remain closed today. SMTD will be operating on designated snow routes. The city of Springfield is delayed opening until 10 a.m. this morning. Lincoln Land Community College is closed today, as you can imagine, with the weather issues and the way folks have to travel in to Lincoln Land throughout the morning. So the county is under a level 2 winter weather emergency, which only applies to county highways. Roadways are hazardous with blowing and drifting snow, may be icy. Areas where the roadways will be partially closed, snow covered by the elements. Emergency personnel may not be able to respond in a timely manner if you're stranded. So they have not reached a level 3, which is fully closing county highways. I don't think we'll get there. We're a little under that doomsday foot of snow prediction, but certainly some areas with challenges with the snow and blowing and drifting because of the wind. It is 6:47, 92.7 WMAY. 649, 92.7 WMAY, 20 degrees. Feels like 6 out there. Winter storm warning in effect until noon. About 8 inches of snow here in Springfield. Hazardous conditions out on the road. Be careful. You know the drill by now, guys. We'll have a weather update for you after the top of the hour. John Bumgarner from the National Weather Service will join us, give us kind of an update as to what's going on and what to expect the rest of the day. Maybe why the snow tapered off a little bit, kind of compared to what we're hearing in terms of 10 to 12 inches. We're a little under that, but certainly we'll keep an eye on what's likely to happen over the next few hours, and certainly the wind is going to be an issue. We'll talk to John Bumgarner from the National Weather Service about that coming up after the top of the 7 o'clock hour. I want to talk about some politics. You guys, I have been missing talking about this stuff because I can only talk about tariff policies to the baby for so long before she goes to sleep. So Tom LoBianco, my friend from 24side.news, we also have a podcast together called The Ground Game, which we should probably tape something this week, Tommy. Good morning. How are you, buddy?
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? Congratulations.
Thank you. So you guys have some snow out in DC this morning too.
Yeah, not too much, about a half a foot. It's not an awful lot, but that counts as a blizzard around these parts.
They've shut down schools for a week in DC because of 6 inches of snow.
That's right. It's like Mad Max on the motorways out here, man.
Well,
we're all fighting each other for gasoline.
I do think that's important for today because of January 6th. We'll get to that.
Yes.
I want to start with Mike Johnson, the current and still speaker for now. You were at the Capitol on Friday for his re-election as Speaker of the House. What did you make of that vote as it went down?
To the extent anyone can have control over this House Republican conference, I think, given the numbers, I think he's got about as good a handle on things as you could get. A couple of key dynamics there. I mean, obviously, you saw Susie Wiles, the incoming White House chief of staff, making the calls on Trump's behalf to whip votes for Johnson, and that's a very tightened political operation. As we saw during the campaign, also gives pretty good indication of what we'll see out of the White House. Not an awful lot of drama, frankly, and I think that's a pretty good indication of. Now, will he be able to run things like Nancy Pelosi ran the Democrats? I don't think so. That's not how the House Republicans are wired. But it only took 3 hours. It didn't take, dozens of ballots, with Kevin McCarthy, it's like gritting his teeth through the entire thing.
15 votes over, what was it, like 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks or a week or however long it was and then he was still bounced 8 months later. It's interesting you brought up Pelosi because, and listen, I disagree with everything Nancy Pelosi stands for. Literally ever. I made her the boogeyman in a campaign I ran in 2012. but there is no more effective speaker than we've seen in our lives, right? Than Nancy Pelosi. What did she do differently? I remember John Boehner speaking at an event I was at many years ago. Now, where he said the job of being speaker is like keeping 218 frogs in a wheelbarrow. Pelosi was able to do that, but Johnson isn't. What's the difference?
Well, it's, when I was a cub reporter in the Maryland State House many years ago, I remember I was covering some legislation that was moving in the Maryland State Senate. And one of the desk clerks over there was helping me out. I was a kid. And she said, look, the Senate president doesn't bring any legislation to the floor unless the votes are already there. And, you got to remember, Nancy Pelosi is from Baltimore. She comes out of that famous D'Alessandro political machine. And she operated always in a very similar fashion. Now, are Democrats able to operate better in lockstep than Republicans? This iteration, I would say yes, absolutely. But a lot of times, if you cover a presiding officer in the state house, you cover a presiding officer in Congress, there are a lot of very similar dynamics. And that is counting votes, knowing who is where, who can vote for what. If you're Mike Lawler from New York and a moderate Republican who's concerned about SALT, the cap on what can be claimed on income taxes or a state deduction for how much you pay in Fed, you got to know where each member stands. And, back to the Boehner analogy, you ought to know the different warts and, the different colors and the different sizes of all 218 frogs you got in your wheelbarrow, because that's how legislating works.
Tom LoBianco, 24site.news, 24sight.news, joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. The incoming administration has certainly, it feels like the heat has come off of them, especially with the nominees in the last few weeks. That you haven't heard anything about Hegseth. We're starting to hear more about Kash Patel again now that he said stupid stuff about January 6th, which I'll talk about in the next hour. But I mean, Kennedy's fallen off the map. Gabbard has fallen off the map after the terrorist attacks last week. You're getting Senate Republicans who are essentially saying Trump needs to have everything he wants on his national security team. Is he just sliding in under the radar? Amazingly, Donald Trump sliding in under any radar. But it seems like there's so much less heat on him than there was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I think that's true. And again, this gets back to the operation being a lot smoother and tighter, Trump's operation, than it was, even just a couple of years ago. By running out the vast majority of nominees, all the major nominees, before Christmas, it gave a chance for all the scandals to come out. And look, if you didn't know that Pete Hegseth had these scandals, you haven't been paying attention. And I'm not talking about everything that we reported on. I'm talking about inside the Republican Party. That was fairly well known long before it became public knowledge. Okay. So the tactic of airing it all out before Christmas, then letting everybody go do the holidays, then you come back and there's, Jimmy Carter died. He's going to be lying in state at the Capitol in a few days. You've got all these presidential medals of freedom. You had from Biden, the terrorist attacks on New Year's Day, the U.S. Steel battle that's ongoing. There's plenty of externalities to distract from all this. Now, that said, we are going to have confirmation hearings soon. Pete Hegseth is up on January 14th, I believe. So, is this a permanent, pass on this, or is it just a reprieve? I don't know yet. We have to see. All right. How much more wild news can you have that will distract from these things, or does more come out in these hearings? And I do believe that Gabbard is still in trouble. Her and Hegseth seem to be in the most trouble. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over at HHS, not so much.
Tom did a great interview about Jimmy Carter over on our Ground Game Podcast YouTube page. Go find it there. Before I let you go, Tom, minute or less here. January 6th is the constitutional date to certify the election, assuming we have enough members of Congress who show up, because they all left town last weekend and are stranded by snow. But certainly we're not going to see an attack on the Capitol this time around, because the MAGAs won. So are we expecting this to be pretty quiet today?
Yeah, pretty routine. And also, I'd also say, remember too that a couple years ago they passed the Electoral Reform Act, which solidified things where there seemed to have been a question, like the vice president's role in these things. They cleaned all that up in legislation. So I'd expect a pretty routine day today in the Capitol, much different than 4 years ago.
Where do we find your stuff, Tom?
Head on over to 24site.news, 24sight.news. And folks, hit us up on the YouTube, the Ground Game Pod. You know what is up. We got some big guests coming in the new year and lots of news.
All right, 7 o'clock. You're on 92.7 WMAY in Springfield. Your dependable forecast for today: areas of blowing snow before noon. The snow itself should be done. Cloudy, becoming mostly sunny through the afternoon. High near 24. Wind chill values today between 4 and 13 above. Winds sustained 10 to 15. Wind gusts as high as 26. That'll be the problem with blowing snow through the afternoon. Partly cloudy tonight, low around 7. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 21. Partly cloudy tomorrow night, low around 4 above. Sunny on Wednesday with a high near 18. It is 20 right now with a wind chill of 6, with a winter storm warning continuing until noon at 7:08 on 92.7 WMAY. Twenty degrees, 710, 92.7 WMAY. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Springfield's Morning News. I'm Patrick Fingston. I'm back, baby. It only took a blizzard to get me back. I've been gone about 3.5 weeks after we had a baby girl. Excited to be back. Wish we could have a little less snow on the ground, a little less blowing snow, a little less emergency to deal with, but we're here. We're doing our newsy thing. We are happy to be back in the ball game, and we are continuing to monitor our severe weather situation. A winter storm warning in effect until noon today. The snow appears to be done. So let's kind of get an update as to where we're at. We're pleased to welcome John Bumgardner. He is a meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Lincoln. John, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. How about yourself?
We're well, thank you. Thanks for the time. All right, so as of 6 o'clock, when you guys did your last update, you had the snow in Springfield at about 8 inches, 8.2 inches. Kind of a little under maybe what we expected in a worst case scenario, and it's still that light powdery stuff that we thought we would get. What was this storm? Where did it come from? And why did we see what we did over the last 24, 48 hours?
Sure. Well, this storm, it sort of originated out of the Great Plains, and it was an area of low pressure that just moved west to east across the Missouri Valley and into the Ohio River Valley. And on the northwest side of that, we had some snow this with these low pressures, you get kind of a little bit of instability on the northern side in the winter with the warm air getting wrapped around, lots of moisture getting pulled behind the low where it's colder. And so that's what gave us all the snow in Springfield. Further south, they had to deal with mixed precipitation where temperatures were closer to freezing. But yeah, the snowfall shook out roughly where we expected it, maybe just a little bit less. But of course, we try to advertise the worst case scenario so that people are prepared. And certainly the blowing and drifting contributed, I think, to those bad road conditions yesterday and even into this morning in spots.
And we're going to talk about the winds here in a second, John. But let's start here. Some of the models that we had seen showed a foot or more in central Illinois. I think we you're right that this could be this bad, right? That there and it's hard to, everyone likes to say the weatherman is always the guy that gets paid to be wrong. But the reality here is that whether it's 8 inches or 12 inches, it's still a serious snow event. But why was it a little less than maybe we saw in some of these models?
To be honest, I'm not a modeler, and so I don't know exactly what went wrong there. But we did notice a trend early on that the American suite of models, we use 3 ensemble systems, the American, Canadian, and European. The American system was running about double the precipitation in its forecast several days out. And so we noticed that. We didn't want to rule it out, but we recognized it as an outlier. And so our office has generally been consistently forecasting around 7 to 12 inches along the I-72 corridor. So, but yeah, you're right. There were some model outputs, including one from the HRRR, one of our high resolution models, Saturday afternoon that was showing 1.5 feet of snow. So we didn't want to bite off on that. Might have just been to do with the overdone precipitation in the forecast.
John Baumgartner from the National Weather Service office in Lincoln joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. All right, so wind is going to be the issue moving forward right now, John, because it appears, and I just looked at the radar, and you've obviously got it in front of you, the snow's done. So the wind is the problem now, right?
Yeah, can't rule out a flurry in the next couple hours, but this system is pulling away, and the steady snow is along the I-57 corridor and shifting east now. But winds will continue to gust to around 25, maybe 30 miles an hour, probably into the early afternoon today, and that can contribute to blowing and drifting. So roads will be, even as the road crews clear them, you could have snow coming back on top of the roads, or at least creating some patches where it's slick, and people should slow down and leave extra time to get to work this morning.
I grew up in the sticks over on the Illinois-Indiana border, and grew up on a farm literally. And you get the wind blowing like this after a significant snowfall. I mean, we would have drifts 7-8 feet high on the farm that I grew up on. Blowing, drifting snow, maybe less in the city, right? But out in the rural areas specifically is a huge challenge.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest issues we have with that too is that maybe road crews clear the road, but then with the blowing and drifting, you get patches that are, 6+ inches deep on just small sections of road. So people think they can go 60 miles an hour, and then before they know it, they come up on a patch of snow that catches, 2 of their tires on one side of the car, and they lose traction. So that's something that, I would encourage people to just be wary of. Drive a little slower than you think you can go.
Don't go 60 miles an hour on a rural road, okay? Let's just be clear on that. That is something we can all logically say. All right, John, and last thing for you, frigid temperatures over the next few days. What's the cause of that? Obviously, it's that northerly air. And how long do we expect that to persist?
Yeah, that Arctic high pressure will be settling in tomorrow. And so we'll be dealing with highs today in the 20s. Tomorrow, I guess low 20s, upper teens maybe in spots. And then, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, we'll be dealing with lows in the single digits, maybe down around 0. With the snowpack, that contributes to the cold because it mitigates radiational losses from the earth overnight. So keeps us a little colder, and then highs in the teens Wednesday, Thursday. But then we start to warm back up towards normal heading into the weekend. We get into the mid to upper 20s Friday, Saturday, maybe even approaching freezing on Sunday. And our next chance of just some light snow, only around a 20 to 30% chance, will be Friday. So we'll see if that materializes or not, but certainly won't be like the system we just had.
And thankfully it didn't turn out terribly badly. It wasn't, obviously certainly this was a bad storm, but a run of the mill bad storm, not a 1.5 foot of snow, not 2 feet of snow, not deadly emergency or anything like that. So John Baumgartner from the National Weather Service, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for the work you all do up in the office in Lincoln, and appreciate your time this morning.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
All right. That's John Baumgartner from the National Weather Service office in Lincoln, giving us an update on where we stand weather-wise. The snow is done. The temperatures remain cold, and the winds will continue to pick up, and we'll have blowing and drifting snow to deal with throughout the morning and the afternoon here in central Illinois. It's 719, 92.7 WMAY. Seven 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's morning news. Patrick Finkston here. It's 20 degrees. Wind chill is 6. Winter storm warning in effect until noon today. The National Weather Service says the snow has pretty much wrapped up, but the winds will pick up, and that is a concern throughout the morning. The state police are still advising no travel on the interstates unless absolutely necessary. They're saying stay off the interstate. Tow ban is in place. County says rural roads drifting, but at least one lane is open and passable. Steady winds are hindering their cleanup efforts. City of Springfield fully deployed crews out this morning. They were making progress, even getting into the into the residential areas overnight. But once the snow picked back up overnight around 2 o'clock or so, they had to get back into the main routes before they could get to the side streets. They're trying to clear the loose snow before they put salt down. Because that really doesn't, the salt really doesn't have a lot of impact as if it's just blowing around on top of this loose powdery snow. The Weather Service says about 8.2 inches observed in Springfield as of 6 a.m. So a little under the doomsday scenario that we had seen, but certainly not a pleasant morning out there if you are trying to head out or get out around anywhere. SMTD operating on designated snow routes this morning. City of Springfield is delayed opening until 10 a.m. Lincoln Lane Community College is closed, and District 186 was closed anyway today for a Teachers Institute. So long list of closures everywhere around the area, as you can imagine. We don't have time to list them all here on the radio, but you can certainly find those throughout the morning. We'll get another update here coming up in just a little bit. First, though, a little politics, because I've been gone 3.5 weeks. I got stuff to say, guys. Here's what Kash Patel said about January 6th. Kash Patel, by the way, is Donald Trump's nominee to run the FBI, who has no law enforcement experience and worked as an assistant U.S. attorney for like an hour. He said, what was the FBI doing planning January 6th for a year? Kash Patel claims the FBI planned January 6th, 2021. He asked that question during a 2022 episode of his Cash's Corner podcast for the Epic Times, which is a Chinese-funded right-wing rag. It was no slip of the tongue. The title of the podcast was pretty clear. What did the FBI know before January 6th? Patel spent considerable time on that show trying to cast the FBI as the villain responsible for January 6, 2021. He noted that FBI Director Christopher Wray had testified that the FBI never instigated or helped the January 6 protesters commit crimes. But citing a report that the FBI had confidential human sources in the crowd, Patel asserted, okay, well, that was in planning for at least a year. A review of Patel's public appearances revealed that he has repeatedly insinuated or argued that the FBI used its confidential human sources or employees to actually instigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol and to entrap Trump's supporters. Patel has claimed in that podcast above that what he calls the FBI's confidential human source corruption cover-up network, which is a mouthful, was somehow involved in January 6th. It's not only an insult to the memory of that day, it should be disqualifying for him to helm the Bureau. During a September 30th, 2022 episode of that same podcast, Patel said, the question that has to be answered is, when did the FBI put those guys in and where? And did those confidential human sources engage people who were not going to conduct criminal activity and convince them to do so? Patel claimed that it is the definition of entrapment, which is illegal, and you can't charge someone who's been entrapped. And he wondered who was running this confidential human source network and reporting to FBI Director Chris Wray. He added he would venture a guess that once we see the documentation from January 6th, you'll see the FBI's confidential human source corruption cover-up network on blast, whatever the hell that means. And he accused the FBI of inserting these human sources into these matters. Patel asked rhetorically, why? Why would you say January 6th? Because they wanted a political target, a political prosecution, not one based on law and fact. This is the craziest stuff. He's nominated to run Trump's FBI. And these boneheaded accusations have been contradicted by other evidence and by common sense. Regardless, he's frequently pushed to this conspiracy theory, using his background as an assistant U.S. attorney for like an hour and a public defender for like 2 hours, key credentials used to buttress his nomination, to provide it with some veneer of credibility. Patel's not alone in claiming the FBI had a hidden hand, in the events of January 6, 2021. That conspiracy theory is popular on the right, even though it's bogus. In December of 2024, the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General released a report debunking the conspiratorial claim that the FBI corruptly used its confidential human source network to instigate January 6th. The OIG reported that it found no evidence that the FBI had undercover employees in the various protest crowds or at the Capitol on January 6th. The OIG did find that the FBI tasked 3 confidential human sources, already criminals, with traveling to D.C. for the events of January 6th to report on domestic terrorism subjects who were possibly attending the event. 23 other FBI confidential human sources were in D.C. for January 6th. But they emphasized none of these 26 sources was authorized to enter the Capitol or a restricted area or to break the law on January 6th, nor were they directed by the FBI to encourage anyone to commit a crime. Simply put, the FBI used their sources to provide information about domestic extremist groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. The leaders of both of those groups, by the way, convicted of seditious conspiracy for their actions on January 6th. These right-wing nut jobs, these extremists, especially the Proud Boys, have been proven in court time and time and time again to have led the attack on the United States Capitol. It happened 4 years ago, and I am still mad about it. I love that building. I love the United States Capitol. And it still sticks in my craw 4 years later that these clowns tried to overthrow the government. And now you have Republican after Republican in Congress and in talking heads and on the Twitter sphere that are trying to treat January 6th like it was some party, like it never happened, like Capitol Police weren't attacked and beaten like dogs. It makes me ill that we have had such revisionist history on such a dark day in American history. 7:31, time for the news, 92.7 WMAY. All right, 20 degrees, 738, 92.7 WMAY. We're back. Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Fingston here. Hey, how are you? Happy to be back after a 3.5 week break, tending to a new baby. Been a little busy, been a little crazy in our lives, as you can imagine. Now we've got 2 at 3 and under, essentially. Not 2 under 3. Our little guy just turned 3, but it's a little bit wild in our house. I'll kind of a little background here. So my wife and I are not young in terms of parent land. We're both in the age that starts with a 4. She's still young and glorious and beautiful and all that stuff, right? But when you get pregnant in at that age, surprise, doctors initially just kind of sounded the alarm, like you're really old and we're gonna have to really watch you. And that's certainly what they did. Our first 3 years ago was mostly uncomplicated until birth, and then birth itself was slightly complicated. As to spare you any icky details, but we were really keeping a close eye on mama and baby the entire time, like to the point of like weekly doctor's appointments starting in the late summer, early fall, because that's sort of how they do it at this age. Everything was going wonderfully, right? That baby was growing, mama felt good, everything was great. And when we got to November, and this was about a week or 2 after the election, maybe, and we she goes in for a doctor's appointment, and they say your blood pressure is way too high. Your blood pressure is a problem. We're concerned about preeclampsia. We're gonna send you to the hospital. So it's like a Tuesday night in November, and we're scrambling. We're like trying to get my in-laws to take care of the little guy. I'm at the hospital with my wife. I was actually it was veto session. It was the second week of veto session, because I was actually on my way down to Springfield, and I got the call to like, yep, we're in the hospital, so come back. And it was a real hassle. Obviously trying to figure out what was going on and make sure everybody's okay and get that blood pressure under control. Everything turned out great. From there, that they sent her home the next morning. They got everything in check. Baby was okay, but essentially it was we're going to keep a really close eye on you and on this baby. And we got to they immediately moved up. Our due date had been January 12th. They then moved us up and said, we're going to induce Christmas week. We're going to induce on the 23rd. There's nothing you can do about it, right? This is happening. And I it was kind of a Merry Christmas. This is going to be a heck of a situation. I'm trying to find someone to take care of our child and everything else going on during Christmas week. Thankfully, we had a whole bunch of family around, and he would have never missed us on Christmas, right? Because he would have had all of his cousins with him, and it would have been the best thing ever. She has a doctor's appointment on January 10th, or I'm sorry, December 10th, that Monday, or December 9th, and that Monday, and they sent her to the hospital. You're showing some signs of preeclampsia. We're not happy about this. We're going to go get this checked out and make sure everything's okay. So we're in the hospital on December 9th, and the doctor comes in and says, all right, we're going to send you home, but we're essentially going to be checking your levels for preeclampsia every day. essentially, pretty close. She was having a blood draw pretty much. She was going to have a blood draw pretty much every day. And they said this baby will be born before your due date, certainly before the due date, but even before the induction date of December 23rd. Like, we don't know if it's going to be a day, we don't know if it's going to be a week, but it's pretty good chance this baby's not sticking in the womb until the 23rd. So it's we went home on the 9th, and then the 10th. She goes back to the doctor on the 11th. They do a blood draw. They see the numbers, and they're like, "Yep, you're going to hospital. You're having a baby." And here I am, like, I'm not ready for this. I don't have anyone ready to do this show. I'm supposed to be here the rest of the week. I've got 38,000 business things in front of me that I was trying to wrap up by the end of Christmas. But of course, they don't care about Dad's schedule. They should, but they don't. So we go in on that Wednesday, the 11th. They start the induction process, and then by 7 a.m. on Thursday, we're pushing out a baby, and she was born a little before 8 o'clock. She was born 5 pounds 8 ounces, absolutely perfect. 35 weeks. We had no idea how to deal with a premature baby, because our first went after 40 weeks. He went full term plus. So we had no clue what premature was going to mean for us. So we were talking to the doctors. We were doing a lot of homework. I even talked to Mike Frericks, the state treasurer, because he and his wife had a pair of preemie twins last year. Like, Mike, what do I expect here from your perspective? And great to talk to someone I've known for so long, who's been through the process. And essentially the doctors told us, at 35 weeks, you're kind of on the line, right? Before 35 weeks, she would have been spending time in the NICU, just to make sure everything's developing, everything's fine. Once you get to 36, you're probably fine. So 35 is kind of that like weird middle ground. So they're preparing you, right? They're like, don't be surprised if she comes out not crying, if she comes out a little blue, if we've got to get her on oxygen right away, her lungs may not be fully developed. They keep close tabs on eating, to make sure that they can actually like do the sucking motion to get food down, and then regulating body temperature. Their own body temperature is kind of the next major thing. So the first thing on breathing, lung development, etc. They're like, don't be surprised if she comes out blue, if she doesn't come out crying. It's not a huge shock at this age. They pull her out, she starts screaming, top of her lungs, just bellowing. Put her on mama's tummy, and she is screaming top of her lungs. It's greatest scream you've ever heard in your life. They take her, they do the initial check. Her lungs are great. She's perfectly well developed in that regard. So they take us up to the NICU. Obviously, I have to leave my wife, go up to the NICU with them, and they do the assessment. They're making sure she's developed, she's okay, everything's great, and then it's like, all right, now we need to see if she's going to eat. And then she's doing like that baby bird thing. If you're watching on YouTube, it's and she was hungry as heck right away. Ate a full ounce her first feeding, like an hour after she was born. Like, hallelujah, great. She can eat, she can keep it down, she's doing great. Then they give her a bath. They're like, the check here is to make sure that she can keep herself warm after a bath. That's kind of the next major milestone that they've got to make sure that she's okay. I went back up there right after the bath, and she's lying on a blanket, just nothing but a diaper, and she's doing fine. They kicked her out of the NICU in 12 hours. So certainly she's going to Harvard. And we are so incredibly blessed, and everybody's healthy. They kept us kind of an extra day, just to keep an eye on Mama's blood pressure, but everybody's great. Everybody's home. Everybody's adjusting. We're all tired. We're all sleepy. But we are doing our best and hanging in there. And certainly thanks to all of you who've reached out over the last few weeks, who've dropped us notes, who've sent texts and called, and we're really thankful that everything went well, even though it kind of truncated our plans, and kind of had to close up some things for the year pretty early. And but you know what, that doesn't matter. And we wound up with some good folks filling in. It kind of changed our plan for fill-ins with folks who were going to do it, then we're on vacation and had another work trip and things like that. So certainly thanks to Brett Gogol for taking a couple of weeks of time to do the show in my stead in December, as we and early January, as we tried to unplug as much as possible. So it's an incredible blessing. We're very thankful. We are officially done with the baby game around here. And and we're in our first sleep regression. So last week or so has just been hitting a wall, and it's been tough, but it's beautiful, it's amazing, and it's totally worth it. It is 7:50, 92.7 WMAY. Twenty degrees, 7:52, 92.7 WMAY. Winter storm warning remains in effect until noon today. The snow itself has stopped, but we're going to have high winds through the rest of the morning into the afternoon, which will cause blowing and drifting snow throughout the region, make life a little easier, or a little more difficult, pardon me, for road crews. We talked to County Highway Engineer Brian Davis and Dave Fuchs of Springfield Public Works in our first hour to get an update as to what they were seeing out and about this morning. National Weather Service said 8.2 inches of snow for Springfield. Kind of varies a little bit around the area, a little more to our south, a little less to our north. But 8.2 is the number as of 6 a.m. For Springfield. So not as bad as it could have been, but certainly not a storm that we are turning our nose up at, certainly because of the blowing snow and the bad road conditions that we're seeing throughout the area this morning. And of course, be careful out there, be safe. Don't get on the road if you don't have to. The interstates are still really bad. The county roads, you've got one passable lane in most of our rural county roads, but certainly blowing and drifting is hard to keep up with. And the city's got the main routes mostly passable, but they've had a hard time getting into the residential areas, especially after the snow restarted overnight. So Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, initially appeared to have failed in the first round of voting Friday to become Speaker of the House. It was a scene that brought back the infighting, humiliation, complete weakness that plagued his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy. But shortly after the vote concluded, but notably remained unofficial, they didn't close it, he managed to hold on to power by converting two of his detractors. In the end, that was enough. The House elected Johnson Speaker by a vote of 218 to 215 to 1. It wasn't without a great deal of difficulty. Johnson had held the vote open for a while, which is a procedural move. They don't close the vote. They don't make it official. You know, like in the state house, it's have all voted who wish, have all voted who wish, have all voted who wish, take the record, boom, done. Right? It's different in Washington where they hold the vote open and let people trickle in to vote as time runs out. A 15-minute vote, timed vote, can often take 30 or 45 minutes in Washington. It's and holding the vote open also gave him time to convert some of those holdouts without having to go to a second ballot or to adjourn. The one holdout who didn't budge was professional crank Congressman Thomas Massey of Kentucky, who had made clear in advance of Friday's events that he was never going to back Johnson. In an apparent troll move, Massey voted for Congressman Tom Emmer of Minnesota, who's the number 3 Republican leader who Donald Trump deliberately prevented from taking the job after McCarthy was ousted. The outcome of that drama, memorably, was conservatives rallying around Johnson as a sort of compromise candidate. In addition to Massey, Ralph Norman of South Carolina, Keith Self of Texas delivered no votes for Johnson by backing Jim Jordan or Byron Donalds. And several other Republicans held off on voting until the very end, adding a bit of drama to the proceedings before they ultimately went in and voted for Johnson. All told, exactly 9 Republicans decided to toy with Johnson during the first ballot. That's the new magic number to trigger a motion to vacate and try to boot Johnson in this just launched new Congress, for what it's worth. Prior to the vote, this was kind of a funny moment. Democrats cheered, and I'm sure some Republicans wanted to, when the clerk read the notice that former Congressman Matt Gaetz would not be joining them in the new Congress. But when the voting started, during which most of the unsworn-in lawmakers backed who they were told to support, each Republican vote against Johnson drew gasps and noises of concern throughout the chamber. When Self voted for Donalds, it shocked the chamber. Combined with the team of initial non-voters, it suggested that Johnson was in for a rough day, or perhaps more. The grins across the Republican leadership turned into stone-faced squinting at their notepads and their iPhones. after that sort of first ballot, or at least before they switched things up, Johnson's face was much different than McCarthy's 2 years ago. McCarthy's demeanor was blank while leaning back in his chair and gripping the armrests like in an airplane seat when you're in turbulence. Johnson was in deep conversation with several members, punctuated by the occasional deep breath or head shake. At one point, it looked like he was suffocating. It doesn't seem like it's that bad for Johnson because he was able to salvage it on one ballot. But he wouldn't have gotten through without Donald Trump's calls and Susie Wiles' calls. Trump world figures were the one lurking around the drama. RNC Chairman Michael Whatley was making calls. Susie Wiles was making calls. Hogan Gidley, the former Trump campaign aide, was on the floor the entire afternoon. But Johnson's in a precarious position now. He's got to try to govern without ticking off these 9 members who are essentially want the world to burn sort of members. And that's going to make it incredibly, incredibly difficult for this Congress to get anything done. 8 o'clock, 92.7 WMAY. All right, winter storm warning continues until noon today in your dependable forecast. Areas of blowing snow will be an issue as crews try to clean up the roads. The snow itself appears to be done. May have a few flurries here and there, but nothing of significance the rest of the day. Gradually becoming sunny throughout the day, high near 24. Wind chill values between 5 and 13. Winds sustained 10 to 15 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 26. Partly cloudy tonight with a low around 7 above. Mostly sunny tomorrow, high 21. 4 above the low Tuesday night. Wind chills below 0. And low around 1 Wednesday night. 1 above the air temp Wednesday night. Wednesday during the day, 18, 19 Thursday, and 26 on Friday. It's 21 right now. Feels like 7 with a winter storm warning in effect. Roads still really rough in the area. Here on 92.7 WMAY. Twenty degrees, 810, 92.7 WMAY. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Springfield's Morning News. I'm Patrick Fingston, back in the saddle after 3.5 weeks of diaper changes and late nights with a new little addition to our family. We're back, and I got a blizzard to welcome me back. An 8.2 inches of snow reported for Springfield, which isn't so bad itself, right? I mean, we can deal with that. We're from the Midwest, right? We can handle a little bit of snow here and there. It's the wind that's going to be an issue, especially the rest of the day. Crews are still trying to get things cleaned up as much as they can. We've been looking at traffic cameras from around the area this morning. Essentially, the interstate is getting clearer. There's at least one clear lane. You can see some pavement along 55 and 72, though certainly not 100% clear. I'm sure there are some morons driving 70 miles an hour on there, but please don't be one of them. City streets having a rougher time as crews are trying to get this powdery loose stuff off of the city streets, and then get some salt down so that they can clear out. They are continuing to work through the morning. County highway crews back out again this morning as well. So winds will be the problem, right? Especially in the rural areas on the interstate, 55 and 72 as you move past Springfield proper. Weather Service says gusts could be 20 to 25 miles an hour with an odd gust here and there of 30 miles an hour at times. They'll kick up through the morning and then decrease into the afternoon, but that's going to cause big problems for crews as they're trying to clear, especially those rural roads throughout Sangamon County and rural areas. State police say the tow ban remains in place. Nothing is shut down. There was a shutdown on 55 overnight. There was a big accident near Lincoln, but it was cleared overnight, and all the roads are moving. But state police still advising that unless your travel is absolutely necessary, stay off the interstate. In the city, Dave Fuchs of City Public Works, who we had on the air with us a couple hours ago, they had fully deployed their night crew. They're into their day crew now, 28 plows, 8 end loaders. They had been making progress. If you live on in a residential street, you may have heard some plows move into your neighborhood overnight. Though they, once the snow started back up overnight, maybe 5, 6 o'clock, or even before that, 2 or 3 o'clock, that they had to pull back out and refocus their efforts on main streets and arteries. They're clearing loose snow, which is their biggest issue right now, because you can't get that loose powdery stuff off the road. It doesn't do you any good to put salt on the road. Because it's just going to blow away with all that snow. So they're trying to get that snow cleaned up long enough that they can get salt on the road. Wind will be an issue on kind of the outskirts of town. Brian Davis, the county highway engineer, joined us in the 6 o'clock hour. He said that drifting and blowing snow is an issue for rural crews. The county highways, the 250 miles or so of county maintained highways, are open and passable in at least one lane. But that steady wind plus the gusts and the blowing snow is hindering those clearing efforts. They were making progress when I talked to Brian last in the 6 o'clock hour. They had 20 plows out as of early this morning. We talked to Sheriff Crouch. She said they had not had a lot of accidents, that thankfully it appears a lot of people were taking our advice and staying home, which is a good thing. Though she did say there were some calls for several motorist assists, and this is the level 2 county winter weather emergency, which is essentially that they can't guarantee emergency personnel getting to you. It's a little bit better now this morning as the sun has come up and we're starting to tackle some of these roads and the snow has stopped, which is certainly a very good thing now that the snow is behind us, and we can start the cleanup. Certainly, 8 inches. I'm sure there's some, old grumple listening to this show saying 8 inches is nothing. We can handle that. It's no big deal. But it is certainly a big deal. We've got major arteries and the interstates around here. We've got big hospitals that we need people to get to. I mean, it is going to take time to clear these roads, but it's important that they get clear. So the less that dopes like us are out on the roads, the better. So certainly it's a good sign that we're getting things cleaned up. It's a good sign that crews are out and working and the snow is stopped. We'll have to deal with the blowing and drifting snow, and we'll just have to keep pushing as the day goes on, and hopefully those winds die down this afternoon as the Weather Service is projecting. It is 8:17 on 92.7 WMAY. Have you with us here on this snowy day, winter storm warning in effect until noon. Roads are still tricky. Be careful. You know the drill from here. The legislature is in session today. I checked with both the House and Senate yesterday. I'm like, what's the plan? They're like, everybody's here. We're going to go to work. So the Senate's in at 10, I think. The House is in at 11 for the last 2 days of the lame duck session. And the new General Assembly will be sworn in at noon on Wednesday. We're pleased to be joined now by State Senator Doris Turner, a Democrat from Springfield. Senator, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? And how was your first Christmas with the new baby?
Well, so we weren't really expecting her for the Christmas. We were going to be induced on the 23rd, so I thought I'd be hanging out in the hospital on Christmas Day. She came 2 weeks early, and we all kind of scrambled. We found her a stocking. We got everything going, and we had a great Christmas. So thanks so much for asking. It was a lot of fun. A little bit of an early surprise, but we are all happy and all healthy, and everybody's trying to adjust to a sleepless schedule at the moment, but we're hanging in there. So
well, just get ready, because with kids, that's the beginning of your surprises.
That is true. Our 3-year-old is already helping us out with that. There are whole new challenges every day. So all right. So Senator, lame duck session. Lame duck has traditionally been a place where some big stuff happens. A lot of folks will remember the tax increase that got pushed through at the very last second under the Quinn administration, the Safety Act a few years ago. This lame duck session is a lot quieter. Why do you think that is?
It has been very quiet, and to be honest, I don't expect any big ticket items to come barreling through between now and Wednesday. There are some smaller things that are still being talked about, but nothing seems like it's ready to move forward right now.
Senator Doris Turner joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. There had been talk after the election of Trump proofing state law, as if the state legislature hasn't done enough of that in the last 4 or 8 years. But that buzz has sort of died down. Why do you think that is? Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I may have lost you.
No problem. We had heard the talk that there was going to be an effort to sort of Trump-proof the state statutes, et cetera. But that talk has kind of died down. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it is. If you remember, we did a lot during the regular session, taking all of those things into consideration. So I think that we were pretty much on a good trajectory to make sure that Illinois will be in a good place. So I think now it's going to be more wait and see what happens and see what else may need to, we may need to do. You just never know. I mean, not to get down in the weeds with the political piece of it, but, I think we can all agree that Donald Trump is pretty unpredictable. So you never know what's going to happen or what he's going to try to do. So I think we just wait and see what happens.
As a Democrat in a blue state, how do you approach it? Certainly you were a Harris supporter. Certainly, you didn't want to see Donald Trump become president. There are those of us who are on the right who didn't want to see Donald Trump become president. But how do you look at this with an optimistic, like maybe we can make this work? This is what the people asked for. Or do you just kind of sit here from a legislative position and say, man, this is going to be really tough 4 years?
I do think that it's going to be a really tough 4 years, but I'm also very optimistic because I think that no matter what happens, this is all of our country, and we want to see it succeed. We want to see things be the best that they can possibly be for all of our constituents. So I'm looking at it from, the big picture. We're all Americans and we want to thrive. We want all of our country to thrive. And I just want to do everything that I can possibly do on my end to make sure that, that not only the 48th, but that Illinois thrives. And also taking into consideration working with my colleagues at the federal level, working to ensure that America continues to thrive.
Senator Doris Turner joins us here on 92.7 WMAY for a few more minutes. All right, so the new General Assembly kicks off on Wednesday. You're of course midterm, so you don't have to be re-sworn into the Senate or anything. But this looks as if we're going to have one of the more challenging spring sessions that we've seen. I mean, certainly since Bruce Rauner left office, with the disaster that was. How difficult do you think this session is going to be, Senator?
I know I hear all the naysayers talking about, the budget and we're going to be in this huge deficit, but I continue to be optimistic. I think that we have done a lot of great things to keep our state on a good budget cliff, and so I'm not ready to just start screaming the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I think that we'll be just fine. The General Assembly along with Governor Pritzker has really been quite good, I think, with managing our state's finances and putting us in a good place financially. So I continue to be optimistic. I really do. I'm not going to buy in to the naysayers that want to, start talking about everything's going to hell in a handbasket.
But it was the governor's Office of Management and Budget that said we're talking about a $3 billion deficit. We are talking about the transit agencies that are saying we need this $700 million plus dollars. And then certainly there's the Chicago Teachers Union, which wants everything in a unicorn and a pony too. That there are so many spending pressures on top of what the governor's own administration is saying. It certainly feels like, we're not talking about the far right wing. What did the governor call them at one point? Doom grifters or whatever it was. But we're talking about people who are looking at this at a pretty sober perspective. So, are you all going into the new General Assembly, this new session with the idea of, all right, we're either going to have to cut some or we're going to have to find new revenue or raise taxes? I mean, what's the talk among Senate Democrats at this point?
I think that we're all at a place where a lot of what was happening, a lot of what was said was months ago, back in the summer. And there have been a lot of conversations, a lot of things that have happened between now and then. And I still feel very, very optimistic. I think that we have a long way to go before May 30th. And I think that once we get to that point in time where we start actually talking about a specific budget items and putting pen to paper and coming up with a budget for us to discuss and vote on, I think that we'll be in a good place. And that's the way that I'm going to continue to look at it.
And you've bucked the party a little bit in your time in the Senate in terms of voting against budgets or certain spending plans or tax increases, et cetera. How do you approach this? I don't know if you call yourself a fiscal conservative or a moderate or any in that, how you define yourself, but you have broken a few times from the Democrat positions. So how do you look at how the state should handle fiscal management moving forward?
You're absolutely right, because I'm a fierce Democrat. Everybody knows that. I was actually chair of the Sangamon County Democrat Party. But, we get in a place where we do the politics, but then we have to move into governing. And I always look at things with regard to my district and what's going to be best for my district. And sometimes that's not necessarily what, the traditional Democratic line is. But I do believe that there are certain things that we have to do, and then there are things that we would like to do. And so we have to make sure that we're doing all of those things that we absolutely have to do, and not putting a lot of pressure or a lot of burden on our constituents. And I think that if we look at it from that perspective, that it'll work out well. It will. It'll work out well for everybody.
One last thing for you, Senator Turner, and this is kind of out of left field, so I hope you'll forgive me. One of the complaints that I hear from both Republicans in the legislature and folks here in Springfield is that there is a concern that the state is still too reliant on remote work. That we lease all this space. The state leases all this space around Springfield, has all these buildings around Springfield that are half empty. They're not using the restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Should the state be having more workers required to be in the office 5 days a week?
I will tell you since I do represent Springfield, I will tell you that we have seen, downtown Springfield just really, really experienced a significant decline with workers leaving Springfield. And then when you add in the remote work, it just exacerbates that. So I would really love to see more workers back in the offices. I think that it's not only from an economic standpoint for the city of Springfield, but I also think that it helps the workflow. There are, I have constituents that call our office regularly asking us to intervene because they are not able to get in touch with individuals that they need to, conduct business. So I would love to see workers back in the offices.
And that started under Blagojevich, where everything kind of started to migrate, the workers started to migrate to Chicago, and then obviously post-COVID. Have you ever said to the governor, hey, dude, can you bring some jobs back to Springfield? I could use a little help here.
Maybe that'll be a conversation for this spring.
All right, we'll hold you to that. All right, Senator Doris Turner. Senator, thanks so much. Wish you the best over the last couple of days of lame duck session, and hopefully we can check in with you again this spring. All right.
Oh, most definitely. Happy New Year.
All right, same to you, Senator Doris Turner, our guest here on 92.7 WMAY. It is 8:31. Time for the news. Your dependable forecast for today. We're still under a winter storm warning until noon, though the snow has stopped. Still blowing and drifting snow to deal with as winds pick up through the morning. Cloudy this morning, then clearing this afternoon, high near 24. Wind chill will be between 5 and 13 above. North-northwest wind, 10 to 15 miles an hour. Wind gusts as high as 26. Partly cloudy tonight, low around 7 above. Mostly sunny tomorrow, 21. Partly cloudy Tuesday night, low 4. Sunny Wednesday with a high near 18. It is 21 right now, with a wind chill of 7 at 8:36 on 92.7 WMAY. Eight 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Fingston here. Good morning. Pleasure to be back. Hello, hello. And a busy first morning back after our little baby break. Thanks to Senator Doris Turner for joining us just before the news. As lame duck session continues until Wednesday. Lame duck has been traditionally a pretty big deal. Remember in 2011, I had just switched from being a reporter to working in the legislative arena. And on like my second day, the Quinn administration, the lame duck members of the House and Senate that had been defeated in 2010 pushed through a tax increase at the very last second as the time was ticking down and Pat Quinn got the tax increase he wanted. He wants another one, by the way, even though he's not governor anymore. And then, of course, you'll remember the Safety Act, which was passed overnight in the final night of lame duck in 2021. And then the House passed it on the floor of the Bank of Springfield Center with just hours to go. before minutes to go, literally minutes to go before they went sine die at noon on that Wednesday in 2021 when they passed the Safety Act. So some big stuff has happened over the years. Not so much this year. Lawmakers over the weekend teed up bills on issues ranging from clean energy and criminal justice to public health and child welfare before the lame duck session ends Tuesday. The new General Assembly is sworn in Wednesday. Among the measures before the Senate is a bill that would eliminate barriers for people wanting to change their names. It would allow people to file a petition to change their name if the person has lived in Illinois for 3 months instead of 6 at the time of a hearing on the name change. The legislation also allows for a person requesting the name change to have a court file impounded if they include a statement verified under oath that the person believes publicly disclosing the name change would be a hardship and have a negative impact on the person's health or safety. The legislation also repeals requirements to publish a notice of a petition to change a name. State Representative Kevin Olsikel of Skokie, who sponsored the bill in the House, called the publication provision an archaic restriction for those people who want to live with safety and privacy. During a Senate Executive Committee hearing yesterday, Senate Republican leader John Curran of Downers Grove raised concerns about whether people living in the United States illegally would be able to conceal their name change in Illinois. Senator Ram Vilivalam, a Chicago Democrat who sponsored the legislation in the Senate, noted that a judge will have the ultimate say over whether court files regarding name changes should be impounded. Bill passed 33-16 in the Senate and now needs approval from the House, which had previously passed its own version, so it'll probably get done today or tomorrow. The Senate on Sunday passed a bill intended to protect senior citizens from abuse and neglect by prohibiting nursing homes from retaliating against a resident for registering complaints about the home to state officials. Under the measure, nursing homes would have to notify residents each year of their rights regarding retaliation and the process to make complaints. Nursing home staff would also be required to undergo in-service training designed to prevent retaliatory action from taking place. The bill passed 48-2 and moved to the House. Also under consideration is a bill that would require the Department of Corrections to post quarterly reports on the use of restrictive housing or solitary confinement on the agency's website, because nothing is as helpful as posting a report on a website. The legislation would mandate corrections to conduct regular audits of its data collection processes and collaborate with a research university to report the data. It initially called for officials to put restrictions on solitary confinement by preventing someone incarcerated from being placed there for more than 10 consecutive days or more than 10 days in a 6-month period, but they didn't have enough support for that. So, of course, they made it posting reports, which is about what you would expect for the legislature. So certainly there's not a ton of big stuff happening in this outgoing General Assembly. It's a pretty quiet lame duck for Springfield terms. The major intrigue in the General Assembly is shakeups in the Speaker's staff. The Speaker of the House, Chris Welch, announced the other day that his Chief of Staff, Tiffany Moy, was being replaced by Clayton Harris III, who you may remember more recently as the Democrat who finished second in the Democratic primary for Cook County State's Attorney. He lost to Eileen O'Neill Burke, who ended up winning. He also was temporarily Rod Blagojevich's chief of staff back in 2008, after Blagojevich was arrested. That replacement was sort of a shock to people on the inside. As I've talked to a bunch of House Democrats over the last few days, they all seemingly really liked Tiffany Moy, who was Welch's chief of staff. She's been around a few years, well liked, really competent from from my interactions with her and my understanding of her. So that came as a surprise, and certainly there's been some pushback because now 3 of the speaker's top people have all resigned in retaliation. His legislative director, his chief counsel, and his press secretary, Jacqueline Driscoll, who's the most public-facing one of those, have all announced that they were resigning. They aren't saying that it's directly related to Tiffany Moy's. They're not saying firing, but from what I've been able to put together, Welch came to her right before the end of the year and said, "You're out." So it's essentially a firing. And he's replacing her, who is one of her people, with Harris, who's one of his people. And there's some serious turnover happening in big spots. And there's been questions about whether the House Democrat staff is up to the job anyway right now. And they're losing some of their top people in the final few days of this legislative session into the next one, when we're facing some really big stuff next in the new year, in the new General Assembly. So the hope, there are questions about the Speaker's management of the House anyway at this point, and what he's expecting from his people, what he's getting from his people, what people should be in charge, who's in charge, what he's actually leading, and what direction the caucus is going in. And there is certainly some dissension in that caucus right now. And we'll see if that bubbles up over the next few months as we get into the new General Assembly. It's 8:48 on 92.7 WMAY. Eight 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Fingston here. Good morning. How are you? Happy to be back. It's been a busy first morning back. As we were keeping tabs on the snow and the winter weather, winter storm warning continues until noon, though the snow itself has stopped. Weather Service says about 8 inches, 8.2 inches in Springfield as of 6 a.m. So that's going to be the total, a little less than maybe we thought it could be or would be, as we saw some of the worst projections over a foot for Springfield and for Central Illinois. Doesn't mean the roads are great, though. The state police said they're advising folks not to take the interstate unless they have to. County roads, rural areas are drifting, but they have at least one open and passable lane in most of the areas. Steady winds and gusts are hindering the clearing efforts, but they have about 20 plows out on county roads. Springfield, Dave Fuchs, the Public Works Director, said they were fully deployed with 28 plows out. They had been making progress on the city main roads enough that they were able to get into some of the residential areas overnight. You may have heard a truck in your neighborhood around midnight, but once the snow started again around 2, they had to get back out on the main arteries, which they've still had a hard time keeping them clear with this loose powdery snow. They're trying to clear that loose snow and then get the salt down, because the salt doesn't do anything if it's just being blown around by that loose snow and the wind. So it's still treacherous out there. We've been keeping an eye on the weather cameras, the road cameras from IDOT all around the area, and the interstate's clearing up, but city streets are still pretty tough. So be careful out there. Stay home, work from home if you can. Pour another cup of coffee and just hang out, because there's no real reason to be out this morning, especially if you would be dealing with a potentially treacherous road. So and we've had a lot of updates for you this morning on the weather and road conditions, and thanks to all who took time with us this morning. Wanted to before we got out of here this morning, spend a couple of minutes on January 6th. Today, Congress will certify the election. Awkward for Kamala Harris, who has to preside over the Senate and certify her own electoral loss. But I go back to January 6th, 2021. I believe and fully believe that everyone has the right to protest. Everyone has the right to have their voice heard, even if I think you're annoying. But that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to do that. But what happened January 6, 2021 was a group of people led by the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers that went way too far in an effort to overthrow our democracy. And that is unacceptable and will always be unacceptable, no matter the whitewashing that Republicans are trying to make of it today. I keep going back to Mitt Romney, the now former senator from Utah, and the speech that he gave on the Senate floor that night back in 2021.
Now we gather due to a selfish man's injured pride and the outrage of supporters who he has deliberately misinformed for the past 2 months and stirred to action this very morning. What happened here today was an insurrection incited by the President of the United States. Those who choose to continue to support his dangerous gambit by objecting to the results of a legitimate democratic election will forever be seen as being complicit in an unprecedented attack against our democracy. Fairly or not, they'll be remembered for their role in the shameful episode in American history. That will be their legacy. I salute Senator Langford and Loeffler and Braun and Daines, and I'm sure others, who in the light of today's outrage have withdrawn their objection. For any who remain insistent on an audit in order to satisfy the many people who believe that the election was stolen, I'd offer this perspective. No congressional audit is ever going to convince these voters, particularly when the president will continue to say that the election was stolen. The best way we can show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth.
Bravo. Applause like that doesn't happen in the Senate very often, by the way, just for reference.
That's the burden. That's the duty of leadership. The truth is that President-elect Biden won the election. President Trump lost. I've had that experience myself. It's no fun. Scores of courts, the president's own attorney general, state election officials, both Republican and Democrat, have reached that unequivocal decision. And in light of today's sad circumstances, I asked my colleague, do we weigh our own political fortunes more heavily than we weigh the strength of our republic, the strength of our democracy, and the cause of freedom? What's the weight of personal acclaim compared to the weight of conscience? Leader McConnell said that the vote today is the most important in his 36 years of public service. Think of that. Authorizing 2 wars, voting on 2 impeachments. He said that not because the vote reveals something about the election, it's because this vote reveals something about us. I urge my colleagues to move forward with completing the electoral count, to refrain from further objections, and to unanimously affirm the legitimacy of the presidential election. Thank you, Mr.
That's Mitt Romney on January 6, 2021. And God bless Mitt Romney. The incident 4 years ago where these people who believed that they would have hanged Mike Pence in a gallows outside of the Capitol. If you don't believe they would have hurt Mike Pence or Nancy Pelosi, you're lying to yourself. He crossed out Trump crossed out lines in his own written speech, trying to remove any sort of responsibility, even dating to that day. And it didn't take him long to move on from condemning the rioters to celebrating them. And with his victory in November, the narrative of the most serious threat to the American Republic since the Civil War is suddenly up for grabs. For Trump, the new struggle over January 6th is a chance to rewrite not just the most irresponsible moment of his irresponsible life, but of American history itself. For his critics, people like me, January 6th is an excruciating anniversary. Reminder of how much constitutional muscle we lost that day and how much more we could wither in the next 4 years. Back then, many of us comforted ourselves that for all the trauma, at least Trump was gone for good. Now he's back. His election is going to be certified a second time today on the same date in the same chamber that was desecrated by his insurrectionists. Don't forget what happened that day. Don't forget what you saw with your own eyes. The truth is never going to fail you. Thanks to County Highway Engineer Brian Davis, Springfield Public Works Director Dave Fuchs, John Baumgartner from the National Weather Service, Senator Doris Turner, and Tom LoBianco. It's 9 o'clock on 92.7 WMAY.